Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining the presentation for Newrange Gold, and thanks to Noble Capital Markets and the organizers of NobleCon17 for putting on the show and giving us the opportunity to present. I'm looking forward to being back in Florida to present the next one live again in person. So we'll get on with the presentation here. As always, encourage people to do their own research, as we'll be making some forward-looking statements. Pretty much that's what exploration is all about, I guess, is forward-looking statements. So Newrange Gold is a junior explorer, gold explorer, focused on two of the most prolific regions in the world, actually, for gold production, and that's Nevada and the Red Lake area of northwestern Ontario. In Nevada, we've got a pretty unique opportunity to explore and develop an historic gold district called Pamlico that at one point was one of the highest grade gold districts in Nevada. And in Ontario, we're about to start testing a very not prolific, but testing a target that's never actually been tested before in our North Birch Project. We're well financed for the winter programs through the first quarter, and led by a successful team, myself and Bob Carrington, who've been in the industry for many years and had a lot of success finding mines, building companies, and so on. So Nevada probably doesn't need very much introduction to a lot of people. It is the 5th largest gold producer in the world. It's ranked the 3rd most desirable mining jurisdiction in the world by the Fraser Institute. Produced about 5.5 million ounces of gold in 2019, and same the previous year, so it's a very prolific producer. And we're located in west central Nevada along the Walker Lane trend, which is a northwest-southeast oriented structural trend, which in its own right hosts many historic and current gold and silver districts, such as Round Mountain, one of the largest gold mines in the world, Comstock Lode, Tonopah, etc. Walker Lane has produced over 53 million ounces of gold and over 500 million ounces of silver. So very, very prolific area, a great place to find a new mine. So the Pamlico Project itself, we like to think of it as a bit of a new discovery in an old district. The first discovery of gold here goes back to 1884. And at that time, it caused a bit of a staking rush, and the district was consolidated by the Dodge family in 1896, and it's been held in private hands ever since then. So this gives us an opportunity, which is quite rare in Nevada, to explore the property that has never really seen much in the way of modern exploration, even though it was, as I say, once known as one of the highest grade gold mining districts in Nevada, and consists of very high grade near surface oxide gold mineralization. We have been working on this for a few years now, and given that we're starting almost from scratch, I guess, in the sense of our geological knowledge on the project, and so exploration is an evolving story in a way. And as we've gone along with every program, we've improved our knowledge, and the model has changed slightly, such that we're not quite as focused on the old mines themselves, and more on the source of that gold, or where we think the source of that gold is. And so I'll tell a little bit more about that revised model in a moment. We do enjoy excellent infrastructure, given that the project is just right off the main highway between Reno and Las Vegas. We're only about 12 miles outside of the town of Hawthorne, and and there's a power line that crosses the property, county roads, that sort of thing. We have done some preliminary metallurgy already, and we've found that with just simple bottle roll tests, we can get up to 97% recovery on the gold. So we do think that this will be very easily extracted just by heap leach methods once it gets to production. And because of the excellent infrastructure, the fact that the project, or the gold, sorry, is very close to surface, it'll be very inexpensive to mine as well. The project is a good size. We cover the entire district. It's a little over 2,500 hectares in size, and we're earning 100% on the project. And I'll tell you about some of the targets that we have here. You can see the property in its entirety. The road coming off the highway just down through the northeastern part of the property, indicating the access. Most of the work that we've done so far has been really in the southwest corner of the property, largely because that's where a lot of the old workings are. And there is a decline that was put in, essentially a ramp, a tunnel that was put in by the family that owns the project at the moment. And when we sampled the inside of the tunnel, we got a little over 75 meters of almost 3 grams gold, with some very, very high grade individual samples within that. And we went on from there to sample a lot of the other underground workings, which comprise about, well, a little over 300 actually that we've surveyed between Pamlico Ridge and Gold Box Canyon. And we sampled up to 98 grams gold in outcrop. So you can see why this was known as one of the highest grade districts in Nevada at the time that it was in production back in the 1880s. So that has really been a big focus for us to date. However, what that has done is has really improved our geological knowledge to the point where we are able, or have been able to put our geological understanding of these different areas together in a way that is a little bit like a jigsaw puzzle, in the sense that each one of these areas is a little bit like a picture within a picture. And as each one of these evolves, we see how it ties together with the one next to it, and we're gradually seeing the bigger picture here, which I'll get onto in a moment. But I just want to point out here that other targets are the skarn zone down to the southeast, where we're picking up skarn-type alterations such as garnets right on surface. There is gold in soils from a previous survey in there, but this area has never been drilled before. And there's also a mine just off the northern end of the property, which we also own, called the La Panta mine, and that's also indicative of this new model that we're building. So what we've been looking at here, the orange dash circle here sort of shows the area of most of the old underground workings, what we call the main mineralized area, and that's the area we've largely been focused on. It's about 850 meters across, and within that, what's known as the merit zone does have the highest grades within that area. But the grades can be quite variable across that area, and we're still not quite sure why the grades are so high at Merit compared to everywhere else. But certainly it would be nice to find more zones like that. But what we're seeing is that these zones are relatively flat-lying, but they tend to dip more or less towards the northeast, towards what we're interpreting as an intrusive body that may have provided the heat and the fluids as a source for the mineralization in this area. So just stepping back a moment to the work that we've done, the slide indicates some of the underground sampling that we've done in those 300 old mine workings. You can see the Merit area. And the sampling that I talked about in the decline there, and how that relates to the old Pamlico mine and the Gold Bar mine, where we've picked up visible gold in the old mine dumps, and then the Good Hope mine, which when we sampled that underground, we were getting about 13 grams per ton gold over 25 to 40 meters in the underground sampling, and we've just conducted a small drill program on top of that ridge to drill down through that area. And although we didn't quite see grades in the drilling as high as this, we did intersect the zone in a few holes, and some of those overall results are comparable with what we're seeing underground. So these areas, some of these areas, Good Hope and Gold Box Canyon, have never been drilled before. And so we're still at fairly early stages of our understanding in terms of how all of this ties together. But here's a cross-section through the merit zone in particular. You can see how it's relatively flat-lying with the drill holes intersecting zones of fairly high-grade mineralization up to 30, 40, 50 grams in places, and surrounded by a halo of lower-grade material. And this is only about 50 feet or so below surface, so it's very, very close to surface, very amenable to open pit mining, and it's really a question of determining, how big this area is, how widespread the gold is, and trying to get a better understanding on the distribution of the grade. So as part of that process, this is just, again, a vertical slice, much like the last one, but instead of showing individual drill holes and being somewhat schematic, this is actually a three-dimensional model sliced through that same area that shows kind of color coding as to the gold mineralization, with the reddish colors indicating the highest grade and the blues the lower grade material. And but this really does give a good representation of, on one hand, how the mineralization is relatively flat-lying, and also the fact that it's quite complex. This has been cut up by a series of structures that have chopped this up into smaller areas, and you can sort of see that represented here by the distribution of the little blobs, for lack of a better word, as to how all this fits together. So in producing this three-dimensional model, I can't really show you in this presentation, but we are able to spin this around and take a look at it from different angles, and it really does help with the overall interpretation. So on top of all of that, we conducted an IP survey finished last January, and we found a few things from that. We had multiple anomalies that we discovered, chargeability anomalies, which we felt was reflecting sulfide mineralization at depth, and some of those correlated quite well with the areas where we knew there was gold mineralization. And despite the fact that the near-surface mineralization has been oxidized, you can still tell when it's been oxidized from sulfide material. And once you get down below the area of oxidation, then you do get into the fresh sulfides, and we now know through our drilling that that's what's being represented by the stronger anomalies that you can see at depth here in the reddish coloration. And again, you can see down in the bottom of the screen, the southeast part that we call the skarn zone. There was only one line run across that, but again, you can see a couple of well-defined chargeability anomalies there that we will be following up on. So this was part of the reinterpretation, or the new interpretation that we're coming up with, because we feel that this stronger anomaly that we sometimes refer to as the line 5 anomaly, because that's where it was first discovered, is reflecting a buried intrusive of sorts, and sulfide mineralization associated with that. So you can see on this, just to give you an idea of the scale, it's about 1 kilometer across east to west, and about 1 kilometer north to south at this point, but obviously still open to the south. And we'll be following up with additional IP to follow that out to the southern part of the property. So just going back in, and sorry, I'll just go back one slide. The line 5, you can see, is the second line from the north, where the line numbers are just on the right-hand side. So just going in more closely with that, to show you the cross-section through line 5, and you can see that the large, strong anomaly in the sort of violet color, and some little fingers coming off the side that are more within the reach of the reverse circulation drill. It's going to be, the main anomaly itself is beyond the reach of reverse circulation, so we'll have to come at that with diamond drilling at some point in the near future. But with hole 91, we drilled a small finger off to the side and picked up some good mineralization associated with that. But perhaps more importantly, the rest of the hole was also mineralized with gold. And the stronger part of that was about 0.74 grams over 18.3 meters. And that was within a larger envelope of about 0.4 over 51 meters. And again, all of that within a zone that's more than 200 meters across. And this is very significant because it's a different style of mineralization than what we've seen elsewhere in the property. So again, just to put things into perspective here, you can see where that discovery hole is with the star compared to where we focused our drilling to date. So it's quite a ways out, and we've interpreted this potential buried intrusive from the IP, but you can see the sketch of the lines there, and the fact that we will want to define that by following it out to the south with the IP survey that should be starting up within the next few days. So just to summarize the program to date, we've drilled 69 holes so far for a little over 7,500 meters up to January 16th. Drilling's ongoing, focused on these IP targets. We have the drilling we've done has been focused along Pamlico Ridge, where we've intersected some decent grade mineralization over good widths, along with lower grade material over larger widths. But now we're starting to see how all of this fits together, and really all of this seems to be dipping back towards that zone that we think is perhaps the source for all of this. And really, with all of that, it's indicating something of fairly significant size. So just switching gears here for a few slides, just to introduce the project that we have in the Red Lake district of Northern Ontario. And the Red Lake Belt is a very, very prolific belt in its own right. But we're located just to the next greenstone belt to the east, called the Birch-Uchi Belt, up in the northern part of that. And Birch-Uchi has similar geology. It's about 3 times the size, but it's much less explored, mainly due to a lack of access. At this point, it's mostly just logging roads that are being pushed in there, and so it's been airborne access only for the most part. First Mining has a resource at Springpole deposits of almost 5 million ounces just to the east of us, and there's a past producing mine, the Argosy Gold Mine, that produced a little over 100,000 ounces at about 13 grams. It was closed in 1952, just a few kilometers from our eastern boundary. So this map really just shows the magnetic pattern of that greenstone belt. I put this up really just to show how contorted everything is, because this is really quite important for this style of gold mineralization that we're looking for. This is what's called an iron formation target, and it's modeled after a number of different deposits worldwide, the largest being the Homestake Mine in South Dakota, which was over 40 million ounces. And just north of North Birch in Northern Ontario is the Musselwhite Mine, which is owned and operated by Newrange Gold Corp. That's a little over 8 million ounces. And I actually worked on the pre-feasibility study up there. So it's a model that I'm very familiar with. And you can see in the inset there the pattern of the magnetic folding in the rocks, and why we like this area, because that folding is key to the structural preparation for the introduction of gold-bearing fluids. And so this is something that we've targeted. We know that there's gold in the adjacent rocks. You can see a lot of the little dots just to the south of the main horizon, and the Argosy Mine just on trend just to the southeast. And so there's certainly a lot of gold in the area, and importantly, this particular target has never been drill tested before, so it's something that we're quite excited about. We're just about to embark on an IP survey up here as well, that hopefully will start in the next few weeks once the weather conditions improve and we can get in there. And the target horizon is about 8 kilometers long. So there's certainly lots of room for a new discovery, and should we find something here, there's certainly lots of size potential. So just to summarize, we have lots of upcoming catalysts, news flow between the IP surveys that we're conducting on both projects in Nevada and Red Lake, continuing with our reverse circulation drilling in Nevada. We will be switching to diamond drilling perhaps within a month or so in Nevada. And once the IP is finished in Ontario, we'll be conducting diamond drilling on the best targets up there as well. The 3D modeling that I showed you is something that is ongoing to help us with our interpretation. And helping to fund all of that, of course, is the news that we've now finalized the sale of our Colombian assets, which has been providing non-dilutive funding for our exploration, actually through part of 2020 and continuing now into Q1 of this year. So there's we just received a payment of about $1 million Canadian, and we still have about $1.5 million to come in over the next couple of months or so. So we should have about $2.5 million in cash to fund the winter programs. So just to wrap up on the share structure, we have about 127 million shares on issue, just a small number of warrants and options outstanding at this point, and current market cap we're in the 14 million range. The stock is very liquid. 675,000 a day between Canada and the US is actually quite low for us. We're commonly over 1 million shares a day, and but even with that, the stock is fairly tightly held with about 50% of it in good hands. So thanks to Noble Capital Markets and to Mark for his coverage. And with that, I shall open it up for a Q&A.
Thank you, Bob. I'm Mark Reichman, research analyst who covers the metals and mining sector at Noble Capital Markets. I would like to remind our viewers, if you have a question, please click on the icon in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen and type in your question. So our first question is, how much drilling do you expect to do at the North Birch Project?
Yeah, it's a good question. Until we've completed the IP survey and determined what the targets look like. But right now, I think it's safe to say that we'd probably do about 3,000 meters of diamond drilling on the first pass as a ballpark number.
I guess related to that question is, what are the seasonal constraints for drilling at North Birch?
Well, this is actually the best time of year to be drilling up there because everything is frozen. There are a lot of lakes in the area, and it's a lot easier to get around, with skidoos and heavy equipment and so on. Unfortunately, it's been a little bit warmer than usual this year, so there has been a little bit of a delay in getting going. The ice isn't quite as thick as we would like, but the IP crews should hopefully get going within a week or so, and it should take them about a month to complete, and then we'll be applying for drill permits. So it's possible that we could be drilling before the end of the winter if we can get going with that before the end of March, and it sure would be nice to be able to do that. Failing that, once the weather starts to warm up and you get into breakup, when the ice starts to melt on the lakes, and then you just can't access the lakes either with a float plane or with skidoos or anything. So there is a period in there where you basically just have to wait for everything to thaw, and then you can get in with float planes and helicopters and so on. So that being the case, it would probably be April, May by the time we got going with the diamond drilling, if that's the case.
Okay, and then another question that came in. What are your funding needs for the remainder of 2021?
Well, again, a lot of that is results dependent, but if we assume positive results and we want to keep drilling in Nevada and at Red Lake, then we could be looking at several $1 million more to continue that. Our budget for the next or for Q1, or at least the next 3 to 4 months, is in that $2.5 million range. And so, we'd be looking to top that up at some point. We have been looking at the possibility to perhaps do some flow through to fund the Red Lake project.
Well, I guess I was going to ask, maybe it might be helpful just to maybe elaborate a little bit on that 8-kilometer target horizon, that was mentioned in your recent press release.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, essentially, the structure that's interpreted there runs right along the iron formation, and the iron formation itself is the target horizon. But typically, iron formation is only mineralized where it's cut by these structures, and so it's very important to look at the intersection of the two. Now, if you think of there was a sort of a broader fold on the left-hand side of that map where you could see a very good offset where there is a structure that cuts the iron formation at a high angle. But where that type of a scenario occurs, then the actual intersection of the structure and the iron formation is actually quite small. And whenever you get the intersection of two planes, that really forms a lineation. So it becomes sort of pencil-shaped. And it's very difficult to build any tonnage in a situation like that. So what you really want is the structure running parallel or sub-parallel to the iron formation itself. And that's essentially what we have there on that target horizon, where the structure comes in, runs right up the iron formation. And so that's where the target becomes about 8 kilometers long. And ideally, it's often where you get some folding in the iron formation as well as where you can get really tight folding, that is, where you can get some good concentrations of mineralization. But we won't know in detail. The information along that horizon is not exposed at surface, so that's another thing that there is outcrop on both sides, but that particular horizon, and that's another reason to think that that it has been sheared, that there is a structure going through there, because then it becomes somewhat recessive to weathering, and that's why it's not exposed at surface. So we will be testing that in a variety of different locations along that 8-kilometer horizon.
And I think you already addressed it. The next question is, when do you expect to begin diamond drilling at Pamlico?
That's possibly, perhaps by the end of February, but it may be March. We'd like to complete this IP survey that we're doing now, assess the results. There may be some more RC holes that can be drilled on that basis. And then at some point we'll transition to the diamond drilling. We don't really want to have both RC and diamond drills going at the same time. For one thing, it would mean that we'd have to double up on all of our support crews and everything, and so it just gets a little bit more expensive to do that. The RC drill, although it's more shallow, it's still providing some good information for us, because you can appreciate that with the large anomaly being about 1 kilometer across in the middle and potentially 2 kilometers long, depending on how far to the south it goes. This is a very, very big area that has never been drill tested before. And so you bring in a diamond drill and the drill bit is about 6 inches across, and you're going into an area that is 2 by 1 kilometers in size. That's literally like a needle in a haystack. So we want to try and get as much information as we possibly can before we just go in and we really don't want to be drilling blind if we can help it.
Well, we recently released the remaining 19 results, from the drilling that was done at Gold Box and Good Hope and Merit. And I think, just kind of looking back, it seems like, the continuity has been good, fairly consistent, results. I'm going to be looking forward to that large, anomaly and any drilling there. But, for the drilling program to date, I mean, how's it compared to your expectations, and maybe what's kind of surprised you a little bit?
Well, when I first got involved with the project a couple of years ago, Mark, you know, at that point, most of the drilling had been focused on the merit zone, which, you know, as you know, is very high grade. And, you know, and we knew at that point, of course, that there were lots of underground workings. And we, you know, 2018 and 19 were not particularly good years for raising money for junior companies. So, you know, we were trying to do things on a fairly low budget, and so there wasn't really any drilling done in those years, and we focused on just sampling the underground workings. And you know, results were somewhat mixed from the underground sampling. You know, in some areas like Good Hope, for example, you know, we did get some you know, some good results. Other areas not so much. And but with the underground workings, you know, you're sampling along a vein that is sub-horizontal, fairly flat-lying. And so, you know, those results are essentially along strike. And, you know, given that those areas had never been drilled before, we really didn't know what the vertical extent of the mineralization was. And so, you know, given that our recent drilling was really the first drilling that had been conducted in those areas, you know, we weren't really sure what to expect, and obviously, I mean, you always hope for, you know, nice grades and, you know, big intercepts and so on. I mean, that's sort of the dream of every exploration geologist as well as the investors. But you know, we didn't know what the continuity of the gold was going to look like, and you know, gold is notorious for being very nuggety, discontinuous, and you know, you can drill 2 holes 5 feet apart and get completely different results. And so it's, you know, the last so the last set of results, yeah, I mean, it's they were lower grade than we would have liked, certainly. But if we went back into those same areas and drilled a few more holes, there's nothing to say that, you know, we could get a completely different set of results too. So right now it's a matter of prioritizing things, and what we have learned from, you know, this last program is just how all of these different zones relate to one another. And we're seeing, you know, certain features or patterns in each of these areas where, you know, as I say, the bigger picture is starting to come together. And, you know, each one of those is kind of like a little picture within a bigger picture. And so the bigger picture being that intrusive related, you know, body that's driving the whole thing. And, you know, that being the case, the large IP anomaly is likely reflecting sulfide mineralization at depth. Whether that sulfide mineralization itself is within the intrusive or just forms kind of an alteration halo around it is yet to be seen. You know, the holes that we've drilled, such as hole 91 close in, have all been in volcanic rocks. You know, we haven't seen any intrusive rocks at all yet. And we don't know how far down we'd have to go to get that. So it's really a question now of, you know, this sulfide mineralization that we think we're seeing, and you know, how well mineralized is it? Because, you know, as you know, gold is often associated with pyrite, but pyrite is a very, very common mineral, and you know, that's why they call it fool's gold. And you know, where you find pyrite, you don't always find gold. So it would be nice if that was true, but so there are often other features like structures and so on that cut those zones, and those are what introduce the gold in the first place and then concentrate it in one spot as well. And so that's what we're trying to determine with a combination of the IP and the RC drilling, because once we go to diamond drilling, it's about 3 times as expensive in Nevada. And so that's, you know, it does start to add up pretty quickly. So you really do want to have a pretty good handle on where you're going to drill once you get to the diamond drilling stage.
Well, Bob, I think that's about all the time we have. Thank you so much for joining us.
It's been my pleasure, Mark. Thanks very much.